As you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
That. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the
topics.
book because there's no enemies list on that book. There are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people, and they were rightly called out. And you should give that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
Listen, you know, I actually had with one of my best, smartest, brightest group chats this morning. No disclosure. You know, they were on Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and people just need to realize, since the pandemic, there's been a narrative set up of law enforcement coming in and presenting to the American public like a cinematic ending to a lot of things that people want to happen.
Right.
Including like these mass arrests and perp walks and major convictions. And, you know, I was like, they were saying like Pam Bondi's like, you know, she's either biding time or I forget. There was like, and I was like, explain your argument. And they're like, oh, this, that, and the other thing. And then somebody like chirps in, yeah, like people like George Soros and Bill Gates. And my answer to that was endless money, endless lawyers. And they're like, no, that's bullshit. There's like legit stuff that Bill Gates could be in jail for right now. I was like, guys, let's just remember that 3 fucking months ago during the transition, Bill Gates ate dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He's not going to fucking jail. Like,
right.
People have had their expectations not even set up, warped by a lot of people in conservative commentary.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's some of the biggest names. Unfortunately, it's some of the people who are currently working in the government for us. And at the end of the day, you have to go back to like, this administration's job is to reset everything. And I can confirm that up through this week, places like the FBI and the DOJ and the State Department are still en masse firing people who are resisting the will of not only just the American electorate and the vote and the mandate, but President Trump and his agenda.
Right.
Nothing big will be done until that's taken care of. Dismantling the administrative state. And 99% of that's going to happen behind the scenes. The DOJ and FBI announced this week they arrested 200 pedophiles since
They don't
Bondi.
care about that, which is, it's wild that they don't care about that.
Real people who hurt real children are now in jail because of Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and the great work that they're collaborating on. But they much would rather that like Bill Gates gets like publicly hung or George Soros gets like thrown off a building and like all of these things that aren't really going to happen because a lot of these people who are like the big bad villains of everything during the Biden administration, whether it had to do with censorship, whether it had to do with deplatforming, whether it had to do with J6, whether it had to do with anything, are now in a lot of contexts working alongside the president. You see Zuckerberg there. I already mentioned Bill Gates. And there's a lot of other big tech billionaires and oligarchs who have decided to give up the fight and not resist. And even if it's quietly behind the scenes, support President Trump and the America First agenda, or just get out of the fucking way so they don't obstruct anymore.
And all they care about is these big names and these big agendas and not anything that is actually happening. Like you said, they're actively removing people that are defying the Trump agenda, the mandate that we voted for. Like case in point, everybody shit talked FEMA. There was a time where, you know, FEMA was the target and FEMA's not doing this and it should be dismantled. And even back far as the weirdos talking about FEMA camps. Well, guess what? Trump's acting FEMA chief, the guy Cameron Hamilton, literally was escorted out of FEMA headquarters the day after he's defying the plan to abolish the agency for the most part during his congressional hearing. Okay. And right there, he's defying the agenda. He's removed from his post. It may not be a big deal to people, but it is a big deal because it shows that Donald Trump is actively leading and showing that if you're going to defy the agenda that I was given, the mandate I was given to govern this country and to get this country back on track, we're getting rid of them.
Yeah. People don't understand that. Listen, 3.5 years ago, Elon Musk was just as much as a villain to most people in America First as a Bill Gates and a George Soros was.
Yep.
He was using his money and influence to help Democrats win all over the place. And, a lot of people who were, outside of traditional media, but still have an extremely large and loud voice, were using the whole Neuralink thing as, kind of a window to open up and continue to make his life miserable. I mean, Elon Musk literally said uncle and then came over in probably the greatest redemption arc I've seen in modern politics.